Hey, as you can tell from the title of this podcast, this one's going to be a little bit different. I had a few things planned in the past couple of months for this channel. However, due to some current life and social affairs in today's world, I spent a lot of time keeping my mouth shut, listening and reflecting on myself and my actions these last 30 years. I thought a lot about where I am today and for what reasons and how I made it this far, including all the troubles that I've had and the scariest moments of my life. So I've been blessed to have a family and parents who loved me and took care of me. I never had a moment where I was actually scared to starve. In fact, I've only ever had too much to eat, never the opposite. I got most of the toys, clothes, and gadgets I wanted, even though I didn't get as much financial support from my parents during college. They didn't pay for my college or vet school. Granted, I never really wanted much of the crazy, fancy brand name stuff, but that's maybe because I was also lucky enough to be raised under a foundation where that stuff wasn't as highly valued. And I think a lot of you guys listening probably had similar overall experiences, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse. So yeah, we've probably had our heart broken, cried due to our insecurities, entered a bit of credit card debt, maybe broken a bone or failed a really important test that may have determined our future. So I kept thinking and I kept reflecting. Well, I'm also a male, and I come from a culture, Chinese, where the male is definitely more valued. See the history for the one-child rule. Granted, I'm Chinese American, but a lot of core values were still translated from old school traditional Chinese culture to westernized Asian American culture. So being male, I was inherently more privileged, and my three sisters could definitely vouch for that. Despite some of my relatable experiences to you guys, I've never been objectified sexually like a woman has. I've never been worried about being sexually abused or anything like that. Digging deeper, I've never actually feared for my life. Yes, maybe unreasonably that one time in 6th grade I got suspended after an altercation with an 8th grader, and I thought my parents were going to kill me. Or in high school after I called the police on a junior for bringing a machete to a party I went to. I always felt protected. I still do. By my parents, my family, some friends, and just society. And especially the police. So here is where my relatability falls even further away from certain groups of people. I'm not afraid of the police. I fully trust my life in their hands and their protection. Every interaction I had with the police officer was far from devastating, and I have never been searched, questioned, or had a finger laid on me. This is obviously due to me doing my inherent best to not do crime, but this is how things should be. And this is how things are not, and have not been. So I've spent a lot of time so far talking about myself, which is not the key point of this episode. What I want to focus on for many of us is our similarities, primarily our privilege. The thing is, it exists, and it's real. Male privilege, white male privilege, white female privilege, my Asian male privilege, even black privilege. But these are not all created the same. And the quickest way I can make an example of how drastically different they are is to ask you one question. And that is, thinking carefully, if you had to restart a whole new life from the beginning, without any idea of how it will turn out or who you'll become, and were only allowed to choose to be born into any race or color, what race would it be? And that is why Black Lives Matter. Because many of us would either choose the same race that we are now, because we're very proud people, right? Or maybe white. In America, being born black means you're at an immediate disadvantage. Look at all the statistics of median income or percentage in jail. And yes, I opened up a whole can of worms by bringing those up. And all I will say about that, because I'm not an expert in politics or socioeconomic affairs, is that there is something systematically wrong. If there is such a huge statistical display of poor and incarcerated black people in our society, something is wrong and things need to be changed. My biggest frustration with our division on such heated topics is their polarization, especially when at the core, many of us are in agreement. Do you feel there is a mistreatment to the black community by the police or a skewed perception of them as dangerous to society? If you answered yes, then you are for the Black Lives Matter movement. Living in Florida now, I've been exposed to a much wider variety of individuals and opinions. I have asked people about their thoughts on Black Lives Matter, and some would respond with, all lives matter. And this is not something you hear in the deep-rooted liberal west of San Francisco County in California. But when I ask them the same question I just asked you, do you think black people are treated equally in society? They all answer no. And I respond with, then you are for the Black Lives Matter movement. Of course, this becomes much more complicated when we talk about who's at fault, because now, much like feminism, many opposers title you as an aggressor, when really at its core, it's about equality. No logical feminist is trying to abolish men from the world. And it goes the same for Black Lives Matter. No logical supporter is trying to abolish white people. And yet, there's this taste in the air from opposers that this is exactly what we're trying to do, or abolish police officers, hence the Blue Lives Matter response. And it's sad, but only natural for this kind of response to surface. As I said from the beginning, I highly value the work of our police force and still see them as a symbol of protection, tying in with all my positive experiences. I currently work to help and aid my local county's canine units, so I work quite often with police officers. They're all extremely kind, loving, and professional people, and they definitely love their dogs. Police officers put their lives on the line day in and day out, so I can live my life peacefully. So my beef is not with the police officers, but the system that has been designed for them to follow, and the system that has been designed in our nation that cripples black society. One quick side note. I have an issue with some of the BLM supporters, Black Lives Matter supporters. During my time of silence, I've been on social media and watching my liberal friends speak out, and there have been posts calling me, or anyone, a racist because I am not currently being active and posting on my social media account. And that could not be more distasteful to an individual who's on the fence of understanding all of this. This being the historical, systematic, and structural racism built against our black society. And some looking at these posts may start to reject the core of what BLM supports. Everyone has their own pace and way of taking in information around them. I'm happy to have friends who are so advanced in their understanding of social justice, but some others may need some more time to let it soak in. And others may be so introverted and don't really know what to say. I don't believe that targeting these groups is the right way to go about it, but that really may just be me. So, where do we go from here? As an obvious supporter of Black Lives Matter, you can imagine that I do want change in our system. My biggest question to the strong opposing side is why is it so difficult to even consider it? It will be hard to alter a system developed over generations with a deep-rooted core of operations. But don't you think we can do better? Is there not a situation where we develop a system where the protectors of our society are given the tools and training to be even better officers of the law? Or do you believe this is the best we can do? As a police officer, I can only imagine how frustrating it is to witness these, quote, bad eggs in your group ruining it for the rest of you. So can't we make alterations to where we can limit these bad eggs? Is this not something that's feasible? Now, I've seen numbers and flow charts and posts about money and funding currently placed in our police budget. And again, I'm no expert on economics, so I'm not here to take money away or fight or defund anyone. Honestly, if it meant more money pushed into the police but less unjustly murdered individuals, then I'm all for it. But right now, there are changes being demanded and suggested, and I think we should look into our options. Ultimately, let's say our police system is perfect. I'd be happy if this was proven to be right. Then, maybe we can find an answer or solution to low-income, low-educated black households and their higher percentage of incarceration. It would be simple to point this directly at the individuals and blame it on the natural behavior of the race, but that's called racism. So I'd rather identify the root of the cause developed by our country. I'm not going to go into a Black history lesson because I would not do it justice. There are millions of sources you can read, listen, and watch. But if I could recommend one recent video that encapsulates the emotion and systemic racism of Black society, I urge you to watch Kimberly Jones's How Can We Win? It is on YouTube. It's posted by David Jones Media, and it is 6 minutes and 46 seconds long. This video is what triggered me to even start writing this episode. And if you are someone who is quiet and still soaking everything in and figuring out how you feel about everything, this may be the video for you. Please watch it. And afterwards, look up the two events that are consistently mentioned in her speech. The details of them are haunting and takes even more words further away from our mouth than Miss Jones's delivery. I now want to identify and share a story of my racism. Not my experience with receiving it, but the ignorant mentality stemmed from my upbringing. I wasn't born with the innate belief of equality and social justice. Heck, I didn't care about anything other than myself for over 2 decades, so I, along with everyone else, have racial flaws that need improvement. As I said initially, I am an Asian American, and so growing up, I listened to rap music a fair bit because of its popularity, its sound, and to an unidentifiable degree at the time, its relatability. Some of the racial struggle could be felt in their music, and many Asian Americans actually identified with this much more than rock or country music, predominantly written by white folk. The best explanation I can come across for this would be from Eddie Huang's memoir, Fresh Off the Boat, where in one segment he juxtaposes Black and Asian American mentalities together beautifully. So, we knew a particular word in many rap songs was prohibited from being spoken if you're not Black. But a lot of Asian Americans, including myself, use it often as a sign of brotherhood with our friends, or when we recite those rap lyrics. Fast forward to college, where in my final year, I have a Black apartment mate born and raised from Chicago. Pierre, not his real name, and I did not get along, and it actually wasn't due to any racial differences, but our animosity did add fuel to the fire when we had racial discussions. One big heated discussion was when we were looking for new occupants for the apartment, as one guy ended up leaving. 2 people, neither Black, white, or Asian, if that's important to know, they saw the ad I posted and came to look at our apartment. Pierre saw them from our kitchen window and made a scoffing sound as they walked from the parking lot to our front door. The 2 people came in, saw the place, chatted with both of us for a few minutes about apartment logistics, and they left the apartment. 5 or 6 minutes, tops, in and out. Immediately after they closed the door, Pierre went off on how racist they were. He claimed that they saw him from the window when they arrived and immediately gave each other a look. It bothered him so much, he began cursing under his breath, and he was so heated. Now, I, of course, already eager to oppose and disagree with any aspect of Pierre's life, denied seeing any evidence of racist behavior from the 2. He ended up claiming that I was trying to take away this experience from him, and that I had no idea how hard it was to be Black. I then argued that it was also really hard to be Asian, and it became a war on who had it worse. I ultimately admitted that I would, on occasion, use that prohibited word mentioned earlier that I had learned from rap music. Pierre did not like hearing that. And so for many years, my take-home message from that interaction was that Pierre was a sensitive, overreactive, self-victimizing Black man. Looking back now, Black people really do have it way worse. Pierre was right to be upset at my complete ignorance. This does not take away from the fact that Pierre was a manipulative jerk who did and said incredibly rude and inappropriate things to myself or my friends. However, my distaste for him as an individual blinded me from the experience that he and his people receive on a day-to-day basis, even in 2020. And for that, I'm sorry, Pierre. And this is something not enough of us in the Black Lives Matter movement admit. And I feel we need to make it okay to share the skeletons in our closet so people can see that we have relatable intrinsic flaws that can be changed. And there is always room for improvement. Our social etiquette is constantly changing, and we need to acknowledge our flaws before we can move forward. This can stem further from Black Lives Matter, as there is also need for social justice with other races, gender, and sexual equality. So, this is what I have to say after 2 months of silence. I wish there was more, and I hope the quality of my message was sufficient, but I'm still absorbing everything and listening to my peers. I'm not well versed in social affairs, and I'm not the right person to speak with to fully understand this movement. But the only thing I can do is try to simplify it to my best understanding, and that is with asking the same yes or no question. Do you think Black people are treated equally in society? How you evolve from this question is your path that I have limited ability to control. I hope that we as a whole nation can grow and continue to take steps in the best direction for our future, helping to shape the world into a better place. If you need time to continue to listen and learn, give yourself that time to absorb it all. It is a lot, and it is extremely emotionally charging. The only advice I can give is try not to be triggered by either opposing side. We're a world with nearly 8 billion people with 8 billion opinions, and many of us have no idea what we're talking about. Start with your core fundamental beliefs and go from there. Thanks so much if you listened all the way through. I plan on continuing more of my original content in the next episodes to come, but I guess we'll have to see how the second half of 2020 will be for us. Take care.